don't want the Centaur, they don't want the Viper, they want the backline, but this time Ramses finds himself jumped on. Oh no, stop! It stops the snowball save from Saksa and kills Ramses. He's gonna buy back and try and come back in. Thompson! Oh, Thompson! A burrow strike from hell goes underground, and he just rips Gaming Gladiators all the way down to the pit itself. A spear to finish him off, and that is a team wipe.
As of September 9th, 2024, halfway through the playoffs at TI13, Sand King is the second most contested hero. At number 1 is Naga Siren, but I'm here to talk about Sand King and why he is a top hero at both the pro scene and ranked matchmaking. Sand King has been in the dumpster for several years. However, since facets were released, Sand King has risen to the top once again. The facet I'm going to be talking about is Dust Devil. His other facet, Sand Shroud, has a 5% pick rate with a 48% win rate. One of the things that makes Sand King broken right now is Dust Devil. This facet allows Sandstorm to follow Sand King even if he leaves the Sandstorm AoE. This means you can farm absurdly fast. He also got an ability called Stinger, which deals an attack and an AoE and slows, and it deals bonus physical damage. His old passive Caustic Finale was moved to his innate, and all these changes add up in Sand King becoming a top tier hero. Due to Sand King having insane farming speed thanks to Dust Devil, he now has many options based on the game. He can flash farm his big aura items like Pipe, Crimson, or he can go for the classic Blink Dagger first and look for pickoffs or jump key targets. He can go for first item Bloodstone to increase his sustain when farming and increase his snowballing and just make his life all the more threatening. Now, more than ever, you can scale on Sand King. With Bloodstone increasing your AoEs of all your spells and Aghanims making you deal insane physical damage on top of all your magical damage, you will always have huge teamfight presence. No matter how late the game goes, you will always be incredibly impactful. The meta of buying auras allows Sand King to buy Pipe Crimson and still have multi-hero stuns as well as buffing his team and being a nuisance in fights. Now, when it comes to item build, it will always be something like Phase Boots and then 1 or 2 Bracers and Wand, and then you'll buy your first big item. Blink Dagger if your team needs catch and you want to start fights for your team, or you can go Pipe/Crimson, whichever your team needs, if you want to tank up and sort of play fast tempo, taking fights, forcing objectives, etc. Some people tend to buy Bloodstone first item, and this is because if they are ahead or they want to farm a lot and snowball, the AoE and spell lifesteal from Bloodstone allows you to zone more in fights and stay alive longer on the map between camps and give that extra survivability if the enemies are focusing you or tend to gank you a lot. Bloodstone can save your life. You can fit in a Soul Ring if you're constantly using mana, which I tend to do, so I do like to buy a Soul Ring. So I'll typically go 1 Bracer into Phase Boots, into Soul Ring, and a Wand, just because I spam Burrow Strike and Stinger and all that nonsense. And especially if you're buying Pipe and Crimson, Pipe on top of your already low mana pool is pretty rough, so the Soul Ring just helps me sacrifice some of my HP with the high regen from Pipe to have the mana to click Pipe and Epicenter and all that stuff. So by the time you are full slots, your inventory will look something like this. Phase Boots, Blink, Bloodstone, Pipe, or Crimson, or both. Yules/BKP, whichever you need, and then Shivas. That's the typical standard offlane Sand King build. Now let's talk about laning stage. In lane you have Stinger now, which gives you that extra physical burst to help secure last hits, trade better, or commit for kills. Burrow Strike allows you to close the gap and stun a hero that is out of position. So if your support is trading 1v1 nearby, burrow onto the enemy support and click Stinger. Now that Sand King has this new ability Stinger, and he gets to keep Caustic Finale, this really helps Sand King with his damage in lane, allowing him to burst and burst heroes down and win lanes that are otherwise unwinnable. So this just makes Sand King all the more threatening because his laning stage has been a bit rough in the past, and Sand King's always been a good mid-game to late-game team fighter. The skill build for Sand King will always be 1-4-1-1. So you're maxing Sandstorm, and you're taking 1 point in Burrow Strike and Stinger, just for value points, but you always want to max Sandstorm because it allows you to farm incredibly fast. However, some people, when they play Sand King mid lane, which is a different topic, but I've seen players like Thompson maxing Stinger first. Now, like I said, Sand King farms incredibly fast. You're going to be maxing Sandstorm, so you should always aim to be efficient in your farming. If you haven't taken tower yet, and you're stronger than the enemy carry, you should go behind their tower, play aggressive, and drag the lane to neutral camps and farm it with Sandstorm. Sandstorm does a lot of damage, and it follows you, so you don't have to stay in your Sandstorm. You should play sort of like a Darkseer, where you go running, pulling the lane creeps into different neutral camps, and getting extremely farmed that way. You want to flash farm very hard early game, and then eventually you'll transition into mid game with useful items like Pipe, Crimson, Blink, Yules, Bloodstone to help your team win any mid game team fights. If you need to, you can ask your support to make ancient stacks. Good supports will usually be stacking already, but Sand King is very efficient at clearing stacks. So if you are playing Sand King and you're taking stacks, you want to press Sandstorm, try to get a stinger in the middle as much as possible without taking too much damage, and then walk away, and you can keep kiting in and out between the camp because Sandstorm will follow you, dealing huge damage. Once the ancient creeps are dead, you should have a lot of money. But another tip I like to do when playing Sand King is I will get the creeps about half HP or 1/4 HP, usually on like medium camps, not really so much ancient camps. But when it comes to normal/medium camps, I will just get the creeps half or about 1/4 HP, and then I'll just start walking to the next camp because the sandstorm will be following me, and it will just burn them down kind of when you run away. Now, when it comes to team fighting, you can approach several different ways. Try to think how your team needs you to play. If you don't have dagger, then you're typically going to walk up with phase boots and click stun, using auras whenever you need, because I'm assuming that if you don't have a blink dagger, it's because you went auras or bloodstone instead. So use those items as applicable, but you will just walk up with phase boots and click stun. Now, if you do have a blink dagger, you want to jump on targets your team can kill. So you don't want to mindlessly blink stun the centaur with 3k HP. You want to blink stun like an oracle or someone you see, and your team can burst them down. However, if you haven't initiated yet, or you see a nice opening to channel ultimate, or you're counter initiating, let's say for example, you can channel your ultimate epicenter and then blink stun, and your epicenter will pulse out, dealing a ton of AoE damage and slow after your stun ends, which is a very powerful, but a lot of times you won't have enough time to channel epicenter. Sometimes you just need to blink stun, and then depending on their draft, you might be able to get epicenter off in the middle of the fight after you've blink stunned in. Another tip I can say is that if you take the level 10 talent, which is 0.3 Burrow Strike stun, you can blink Burrow Strike and immediately channel epicenter, and it will get off so long as other heroes that aren't stunned manage to stun you. If you blink stun, your stun will have enough duration that you can channel epicenter safely and kill them, so long as other heroes that are around you that you didn't stun perhaps might have a stun and they can cancel your epicenter, if you know what I mean. But let's say, for example, if your ally is getting Pudge ulted and killed by several heroes, you want to blink stun the Pudge immediately instead of channeling epicenter. So try to assess if your team needs you to quickly jump and stun someone, or if you have time to set up a nice epicenter for the damage and slow. This just comes with over time experience. It's kind of hard to determine sometimes whether or not you need to just blink stun or if you have time to channel epicenter. Usually if you're trying to quickly initiate on someone to catch them out of position, you will never channel epicenter. And some games I'll go the first 15-20 minutes without using epicenter because I just end up never finding a good time to use it, and that's probably a skill issue on my part. But epicenter is honestly, in my opinion, Sand King's worst spell, but it can be very impactful if used correctly. The only thing you need to be cautious about going into the mid game, well, not the only thing, but one of the big things is you don't want to blink stun when your team can't get close to you or follow up, because I've done this a lot of times where I'll blink stun and just end up getting myself killed because I'm too deep. So try to pay attention to where your team is. Another thing that I want to mention when talking about Sand King and Burrow Strike is you always want to go for multi-hero Burrow Strikes. Burrow Strike is a unique spell in which you will go in a direction and stun everything in your path. So you blink stun with Burrow Strike, and if you start from the back and move forward, you can hit all those heroes. So if you blink stun and there's a lion, and then like close to the lion there's a drow, you want to blink stun, blink onto the lion, and then stun through the lion to the drow, if you know what I mean. So always go for multi-hero stuns. Another tip that I can say is if you blink stun someone, you can kind of aim your stun far away from them if you just want to kite. So let's say you blink right next to a drow and then you stun as far possible away from the drow while still hitting the drow. You will stun drow and then you'll be far enough away that you can keep the distance and keep running so drow won't kill you. You can do this to blink stun people, and then so you'll blink stun on them and then get in the trees immediately. So if they're a threat and you don't want to tackle them head on, but you need to stun them so your team to buy space for your team, or if your team needs to catch up and you don't want to get killed before they get there, you can blink right next to them, stun them, but target your stun in the trees. So you'll blink next to them and then you'll go into the trees, but your stun will still hit them because they're right next to you. That's one of the best ways you can use Burrow Strike, but just get in a demo with it, or just the more games you play. I'm sure a lot of people that have played 3 Sand King games already know this, but it's a nice tip to know. Now to sum up this video best I can, Sand King is an incredibly strong hero because he has fast farming, which will allow him to snowball or catch up if he needs. He can buy utility items like auras, or he can get a dagger and become a strong initiating force. The current meta tends to revolve around teams getting auras and grouping up, so Sand King having the ability to build auras quickly due to his Sandstorm is insanely important. And he also has great spells to help win team fights like Burrow Strike, Epicenter, and Stinger even is nice burst and helps slow. But this just cements him as one of the best offlaners in the current TI and pub meta, and I highly encourage you to go out there and play Sand King. I'm currently first picking him every game I can when he's not banned, and I think you should too. Alright everybody, thanks for watching. Go play Sand King and win some MMR.